3, 2, 1. Go ahead.
John Cooke, C-O-O-K-E, State Senator for District 13.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for joining the program. And District 13, just to give us a little geography and context a little bit, that's Greeley and Weld County, is that correct?
Yeah, it's part of Weld County. It's Greeley, and for those not familiar with the area, I call it the Highway 85 corridor, down towards the Denver area. I'm one of 3 senators that represents Weld. Mine's exclusive in Weld County, so it goes Greeley down to the county line.
And the reason that's obviously something we want to point out is because Weld County not only is one of the top producers in Colorado, but it's one of the top 5 consistently in the United States. Talk to me a little bit about the history of Weld County when it comes to oil and gas development.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's not one of the top producers in Colorado. It is the top producer. There's over 25,000 wells in Weld County right now. And so we've had a long-standing history with oil and gas. As far as I know, I don't know if we ever had a man camp because it's been established for so long. They've been drilling up there for, as long as I can remember, a wonderful relationship with oil and gas. When we had floods that hit in 2013, oil and gas was there to help us restore our infrastructure.
Talk to me a little bit about what's happening in Colorado. You mentioned this history that Weld County has in Colorado, from everything from community to, I guess, government entities. We talk about taxes and schools, etc. But talk to me a little bit about, the past year, what's been going on since right around that time, I guess, the new governor got into office and put through a bill. I believe SB 181 is what it's commonly referred to. But just talk to me a little bit about that and get people caught up to speed on what happened with the past year and a half in Colorado.
Sure. Well, what happened was, unfortunately, the Democrats took control of the Senate. We had control for my first 4 years down here of the Senate, and the Democrats had the House. So we were the backstop to any of the crazy bills that were coming over from the House. So there was one year it passed out of the House and came over to the committee I was on, which is Ag, Natural Resources, and Energy. And the bill made oil and gas responsible for all earthquakes in the state. And then they had strict liability for any damage done. So the Senate, we were the backstop for those kind of things. Well, the Democrats won control of the Senate, and they kept control of the House and the governorship. So there is no backstop. And so what happened is it's basically a war on oil and gas. And the governor declared after 181 passed that the war on oil and gas is over, but that's far from the truth. And so the Democrats hate the industry, and the state is being ran by Boulder Democrats. And you look at the governor; he's from Boulder. The Speaker of the House in the House was not the Speaker. Well, the Speaker is from Boulder. The Majority Leader used to be from Boulder, moved to Denver, and the Majority Leader in the Senate is from Boulder. So we have these Boulderites, these liberal Democrats that hate industry and want to shut it down. And one of them, the sponsor of 181. Steve Fenberg actually mentioned at a town hall he wants to stop all production of oil and gas in the state. And so that's why he ran Senate Bill 181, which puts a lot of restrictions. Well, it's going to put a lot of restrictions on oil and gas and the development. So it was a bad year for the industry. It's a bad year for the people of Colorado because you're right, the industry pumps in hundreds of millions of dollars into the state through taxes, through severance tax, and the schools money that comes in from taxes. Weld County alone, $200 million to the school districts in Weld County, and $2 to $3 billion statewide and all other taxes. So it's a very vital industry for not only Weld County but the entire state. And I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and somebody mentioned, or I mentioned actually, that what happens in Weld County affects the rest of the state, and he didn't buy it. And I said, really? Well, take a look at 44% of the office space in downtown Denver is oil and gas related. So if oil and gas picked up and left, or they were regulated out of existence in this state, downtown Denver would be a ghost town. The $2 to $3 billion in other taxes for the state of Colorado. That means less money for schools, less money for teachers, I would foresee things shutting down.
Well, I'll even go a step further because I'm looking at, Denver, for example, and the people I've talked to, the producers, the service companies, there's a strategy behind Denver. There's we got Grand Junction over on the other side of the state. You've got the Powder River up in Wyoming, but you've got the Bakken and the Permian, which are the big two plays in the United States, and Denver's got a very good international airport. And so with that being said, I mean, Denver was a very strategic, centralized location for oil and gas companies that had to go north and south, whether it be the one part of the Rocky Mountain or down into a Rocky Mountain region up in North Dakota or down into the Permian. State Senate and the halls of Congress and things like that. Is that conversation being had as far as the ripple and the impact of the whole area?
No, it's funny. It's only being that conversation is only taking place on the Republican side. They don't want to believe what we're telling them. We're telling them all those things about downtown Denver. Denver, as a matter of fact, is going to be considering whether to ban all drilling and fracking inside the city limits of Denver. Well, there are a lot of wells out at DIA at the airport, and so Denver's going to lose that income. They just refuse to believe that oil and gas is that important, and they want to look at clean energy as being the savior of the state. Well, even if they can get to the 100% like they're talking about, that's not for another 30 years, and which will be totally impossible. So no, that conversation is not being had because they don't care. They would rather shut it down. They would rather cause energy poverty than they would to have a legitimate discussion on what the rules and regulations are going to do.
What's being said there what types of things should people be looking at? I mean, you've got a very active oil and gas industry right now in Colorado, and I mean, I'm looking another regulation today I saw in the headlines. It seems like every single day there's either a county regulation or Colorado oil and gas COGS type of a regulation or work over thing. What's happened in the past year, and what do people look for next year for industry?
Well, it depends on what the governor said is true, that the war on oil and gas is over. Because what we're looking at is the possibility that the Democrats will bring some setbacks, either through legislation and have a 2,000-foot setback from any structure like they tried to run in 112 about a year ago, and or through rulemaking. Have a 2,000-foot setback from any structure, any waterway, which goes as far as an irrigation ditch. And so we could be looking at that. The bigger problem, there's a COGCC, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation. They haven't come up with all the rules yet, and they did come up with one regarding mapping and on flow lines, which is going to be awfully expensive. Then the Air Quality Control Commission, I think, is what people really need to be worried about. They just came out with some regulations or some new rules on methane leaks detection. So they want to do find and fix, what they call find and fix, including like 2 inspections a year. They want to look at emissions from storage tanks and low-producing wells and natural gas transmission and storage. And they're not looking at the facts and figures. We're talking about complicated technologies here, and they're going off of scare tactics. So those are new rules that are coming out. The other thing I think we have to be concerned about the Air Quality Control Commission. It's not only just for oil and gas, but it's for a lot of other businesses like agriculture and hospitals and universities, because our governor removed a waiver from the EPA. We were in mild unattainment for air quality, and he removed a waiver because most of our admissions, our bad air quality is coming from China and California. And the past governors have asked for a waiver to exclude that, and we've always got it. Well, this governor said, no, we don't want that. So he took back the waiver, so now we're in severe non-attainment, which means there's going to be a lot more rulemaking for oil and gas and a lot of other businesses in the state for very minimal, and I mean minimal, reductions, if any.
Who's behind the rulemaking? Is it the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation group, or is it your body of work, or is it all the local county commissioners? I guess who's kind of got the lead on this rulemaking?
Well, it used to be it was Colorado Oil and Gas Commission, and their mission was to foster oil and gas development. But under 181, that they took out the word foster oil and gas, and they put in to regulate, and so they are going to be regulating on a statewide basis. But what 181 did was to give local control to cities and counties as well. But I had a little argument with the governor because I told him this is going to kill Weld County. And I even asked him, I said, why do you hate Weld County? And he goes, oh, I don't hate Weld County. I love Weld County. And I said, well, your actions don't show it because this is going to kill Weld County. And he goes, it's not going to hurt them. They can opt out. I said, Governor, that's not true. They can opt out of 181 only if the rules that they come up with are more stringent than what 181 what COGCC comes up with. Only if it's more stringent. So you can opt out, but you have to have it more severe rules, or you can stay in and opt in and follow whatever the state rules are. So there really is no opt out per se. So COGCC is one rulemaking entity. The local cities and counties are another because it gives local control and the air quality control. So they're attacking it from three different fronts.
What are the people, the locals, saying? Weld County, they're obviously in the thick of it. They understand the local impact. You were a sheriff for many years, if my memory serves me correctly, so you've got a very good pulse on the rural area, not only in the city limits, but the rural area, because sheriff knows everybody, whether they know the sheriff or not. Right. The sheriff knows them.
That's exactly right. I was the sheriff's office for 30 years. The last 12 as the elected sheriff. And, the sheriffs, you're absolutely right, have the heartbeat or the pulse of the people because we're elected by them and we're direct representative for their law enforcement. And so we do know, and I make this joke a lot of times. I said it long before I ran for Senate. I said, you ask, 10 people who their sheriff is, and 9 out of 10 can tell you who their sheriff is. But you ask those same 10 people who their state senators, and none of them can tell you. And and it's almost that way anymore. So the sheriffs, yes, I had a pulse on what people think, and we started to recall a House rep from House District 50, which is part of Greeley, because she voted for 181, and so there were people out getting petitions to recall her, and she resigned before she could be recalled. People in Weld County are scared, and they should be. And the businesses are worried, the local governments are worried, and the rural. I mean, there is such a partnership between the farmers and oil and gas. I was talking to a large dairy farmer out by Milliken, which is in my district, and he said if 181 passes or 112 passes, he could lose his farm. And he's been farming for a long time. He goes, I don't make money on my dairy farming. I make money from my mineral rights, from oil and gas. And if things go the way they look, I might have to shut down farming and sell my farm because it can't make it. So it has it's going to have a huge impact on Weld County, and the people are scared.
And what does the opposition say? The people that are trying to ban oil and gas? Because I actually did a program. I interviewed a few people from Colorado when I heard the war on oil and gas, because that was the first time I ever heard that phrase. I mean, we've had a lot of wars. We've had wars on poverty, wars on drugs, wars on a lot of different things. So when I heard the governor say that caught my attention. And that seemed to me like there was going to be some infighting. Because up in North Dakota, 55% of the state taxes are based on two oil and gas taxes. You got a production tax and an extraction tax. And
right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of government agencies that need that operating cash to go. What does the governor say about the people with Weld County and et cetera?
Well, what he told me when the debate was going on 181, when I told him it's going to devastate Weld County, his direct words to me was, "This bill will not affect Weld County in any way." And so I argued with him on that, and then that's why I asked him when I asked him why he hates Weld County, and he told me again it won't affect Weld County at all. So I said, then why are there 3 county commissioners right now in committee testifying against the bill, saying that it's going to hurt Weld County? And he's the smartest man in the room. I take it back. He's the smartest man in the world. Just ask him, because he'll tell you how smart he is. And he told me, well, those commissioners, they don't need to be here because it's not going to affect Weld County. So he lives in a bubble, or he just is so set on 100% renewable that he's blind to what's going to happen when oil and gas cease to exist here in the state.
Winding down here, I'll kind of wrap up for you so we can get on with our holiday season. But I've been on record now for the past several months saying I truly believe 2020 is going to be the most important year for oil and gas, probably in their history, and from a lot of different reasons, but primarily because, this environmental movement, and now you've got Greta Thunberg as Time Person of the Year, where I'm a little bit upset at that, because I think that there's a little bit too much enabling of existential anxiety in children going on, and I think that's one of the things that's happening here. But what do you make of that comment? I'm saying 2020 could possibly be the most important year in oil and gas's history.
I think you're right. If not here in Colorado, if not in the whole world, at least here in Colorado, it's going to be a very important year. And if I'm partisan, so if Donald Trump loses, Katie bar the door. I think oil and gas in this country is going to take a huge hit. So I think with the presidential election and with the local elections, it could very well be the most important year. Especially here in Colorado, the Democrats overreached last year. They created a lot of uncertainty in the markets, which causes job loss and tax revenue loss. And I think next year is going to be very telling. Maybe not through legislation, but through the rulemaking that COGCC, the locals, and air quality control put in place. The problem is the opposition doesn't base anything on facts or figures. It's all emotion. They believe 30-second sound bites, and that's what's scary. And that's why we have that 12-year-old or however old she is being Time Person of the Year and speaking to the UN, because she doesn't know what she's talking about. She just believes sound bites, what she's been indoctrinated with.
Well, and I'll tell you, some of the enablement isn't very good either. When you have the media, when you've got the UN positioning her as the spokesperson for climate change, when there's a lot of scientists out there that have at least some verified data that they'd like to show, when they're not getting the time of day, and you got a 16-year-old talking about how the world's going to end in 10 years, and you've got presidential candidates trying to ban industries. That's just a lot coming at the industry. What should people do? A lot of people listening out there, and part of your job is to get people active and get people informed, that sort of thing. Do you guys have advice for those people in the industry who maybe haven't been active in the past?
Absolutely. When 112 was on the ballot, which was a 2,500-foot setback, and it was on ballot 2 years ago, and I went to Koga here in Colorado, and I said, give me all the businesses, the oil and gas businesses. And I went and spoke to over 4,000 people at different rallies. I went to speak at their safety hearings. And I would say, look, to the line level people, because, the CEOs or the presidents, the high up ranking managers, they're all informed. They know what's going on. They're active. But I wanted to reach the line level people and say, look, the opposition goes off of emotion. You need to start using emotion. You need to talk to your neighbors and say, if this bill passes, we're going to have to move, or my husband will be laid off. And if you like your kids playing with my kids, you need to vote no on 112, and talk about how oil and gas pays for the electric bill, is paying for your kids' medical bills, is paying for your kids' colleges. Use the emotion part like they do in committees. What would happen is the opposition to oil and gas would come in with their little baby, and they would talk about how oil and gas is killing their baby, and they're killing them, and their asthma is up, and leukemia is up, which is all bunk. And they use emotion. But then what we have with the head of Koga or the head of API come in and talk to us because they knew the Senate would kill it and would talk, and we would kill their bills. That was the wrong approach. We need the line level, the workers, the people that are out in the fields, driving the trucks, the ones that are drilling, coming into the Capitol and testifying, giving their stories, and they need to reach out to not only their legislators, but to their county commissioners, like Adams County. Adams County is going to they have banned any new permits for this year, and they need to talk to their county commissioner and say, look, I live in this county, and my job depends on this, whether directly or indirectly, and you need to lift these bans. There was a issue down in, I believe it was Brighton, several years ago. The city council put a moratorium on any new drilling or fracking, and so all the people in oil and gas said, fine, we're not going to come here, we're not going to eat, we're not going to stay in your restaurants, we're not going to stay in your hotels, and the business owners, they were taking a huge hit. So after 2 weeks only, and the business owners went to the city council and said, you need to reverse this because it's hurting our business, and they did. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to do.
Any final thoughts as we wrap up here for looking at 2020? Whether there's, like I say, any special advice or anything like that, as we just I like to give people the final word. That way a question isn't framed by me. So the floor is yours, yeah. Senator.
Well, thank you. We just need to keep fighting. We can't just lay down and roll over. I think it's going to take oil and gas to just say, you know what, we're done, or we're cutting back, and watch Colorado, get hurt financially. The schools and the local governments. I don't want to see that happen. My son's a petroleum engineer with Oxy, so I don't want to see that happen. But we need to keep fighting and getting the message out. And I think there's a lot more commercials out on TV, giving our side, giving the emotional part of the benefits of oil and gas. And I think we just need to continue the fight.